How did you think about the matrix challenges at Campbell's, and what kinds of things did you sort of do about it?
Well, the matrix challenge is a fascinating one, and because you really have to do two things well in consumer packaged goods. You have to be uniquely relevant in a geography. France is different than the United States.
Right.
It's particularly different
Right.
with, I'll give you soup as an example. Soup in France is all vegetable, it's all pureed, and it's part of the fabric of the culture.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
You know, in all the geographies in which we compete, and our soups are sold in 120 countries, everyone's different, because after they killed the woolly mammoth, they boiled the bones and started making soup. Soup is as old literally as dirt to every culture, and it's uniquely attached to the cultural cues of that community. So you need, and if you're a consumer marketing organization, you need to be incredibly relevant in France. So you need geographic relevance, and you have customers in those geographies. You have to manage the geography well. So you have to run businesses that way. At the same time, there are particular competences where you need to be world-class across geographies. Product development in soup. You know, we had developers in France, but we had a center, an R&D center in the United States that had the capacity to effectively and efficiently serve all of our geographies. So we had an R&D stream that was global. We had a geographic stream that was local.
Right.
That created a matrix, and the same thing was true with supply chain, leveraging all the strengths of the whole and attracting world-class expertise to the center to support the geographies. But we had geographies that had to rule the day when it came to marketing the product in the geography. What we had done is we had lost our way on both dimensions. We had compromised the center in terms of our functional excellence, and we needed to rebuild that. But we had also lost our way in the geographies, and we had a major opportunity to upgrade the geography leadership on the line side.
Let's talk a little bit about teaming, because I know you're an advocate of teaming. What did you find in the situation at Campbell's when you went in with respect to how people teamed, and what did that evolve into over time that would be sort of interesting to reflect on?
Well, you know, I'm a little, no one is more gifted at talking about teams than you, so now I'm feeling like I'm sitting at the feet of the master here. But my simple model is the forming, storming, norming, and performing model. And, you know, I do know you've got to, and the notion is, and this is overly simple, but that you have to form the team, and you have to be prepared for what follows, which is a lot of storming as you try and establish how are we going to work together with all these different personalities. You know, Warren Bennett's herding cats, right?
Right.
And so you know you've got to form a team, you know you've got to storm through issues, you know you've got to establish norms and expectations before you can perform at a high level. There's no team that I'm aware of that didn't go through that process in some way in order to get to high performance. So you go in as a leader knowing I've got to form a team, I've got to storm, I've got to move to norms.
Right.
And knowing that you're trying to change gears on a moving, you're moving at the same time. So over those 3 years we were forming, storming, norming in order to position ourselves to perform.
Right.
And doing it over and over again as we kept exiting people and bringing people on. So this was a very complex situation, but the spirit of it is, I have found everywhere I've been that I've got to move towards creating a team that can work together. I've got to celebrate the fact that we're storming through issues because we're confronting the brutal facts. We're bringing all the important, candid conversations to bear here so we can make a thoughtfully pick a path forward. And then we pick that path forward and say, okay, we signed up for this. And now we're ready to go. The spirit of that, knowing that whichever path we picked was probably going to be wrong and had to change. But I found it was very healthy doing that. As I did that, I also introduced a matrix into Campbell. Campbell was run pretty much exclusively by geography. And I knew our competitive set, and I knew our functional excellence, global supply chain, global R&D, was uncompetitive. Having spent 25 years in the consumer packaged goods and food industry. And so I was trying, part of the forming the team thing was creating a matrix. For the first time we had a head of global supply chain. For the first time we had a head of global R&D. You know, that had never been done before in our company, which is shocking, but true. And so I was really, we ran into a lot of storming there because I was really interrupting the autonomy of the individual units. And trying to honor their autonomy and introduce and build world-class capabilities in Campbell at the same time was an extraordinary leadership challenge, probably one of the 5 biggest challenges we had.
And it sounds like that the matrix situation, which was a challenging in and of itself, needed both formal teaming and informal teaming for it to work well?
You had to create again, I go back to how important it is for organizations to have clarity of expectations. And to that end, structure and systems are important. So they know you mean it. If you're just doing informal stuff, it's not telegraphic. They don't, all they know is there's just a lot of informal stuff going on. So in my opinion, the informal has to be in support of the formal. In some way. And when you create the formal, you've got to do it in a way that creates enough room for the informal to happen, right?
Yeah.
That's the art of this. And so I had to create a structure that said we will have a head of global supply chain. He will work for me. Or he or she will work for me. And so, but at the same time, we had to allow the individual, and by the way, the people that work for you in France on supply chain are going to report to you, but they also report to him. And we had to find a way to get people to be comfortable with dual reporting relationships, and then and that was important on a formal sense. And after we had established that that was a workable proposition, we were able to evolve to a place where the informal things could happen naturally, and without, in a supportive way, as opposed to a way that undermined our credibility.